My God, we're in NEWSPASTY, and where are we? We're in the Israel-Hamas war, as Sky News are calling it, the Israel-Hamas war, not Israel-Palestine war. That's too edgy. It's been that for a long time, but this is a part of it, isn't it? Oh, Hamas have attacked Israel and done as much damage as Israel's done over the past year, maybe in just one day. And so suddenly everybody's up in arms, of course, Palestine. And what happens when anybody who's Palestinian by birth or representative of any side of Palestine, what happens when they go on a news show now? They have to condemn. They're forced to condemn the people they don't associate with, that they're not related to, that they have no party affiliation with, that they're not on their side at all. They have to condemn them, or the news presenters don't like to go on, because you have to prove that basically it's a form of saying, are you in allegiance with the status quo? Do you condemn the one side thoroughly while ignoring Israel's responsibilities, being an occupying force, and the effect that has on the whole region, and Palestine and Israel in particular, and Gaza? You have to ignore all that and just condemn outright these attacks. And it's something you see during these what seems to be manufactured events. And when people say, well, you're saying that very quickly, there's no evidence it's manufactured. There's no way the Israeli intelligence didn't know that this was being planned. Zero way. Zero. It's a lie. If they tell you this, you're soon going to find out different. There is no doubt that Israeli intelligence were all over this, knew exactly what was going on, and knew that this could be called a new September the 11th, just like Victoria Nuland was looking for, and that was January 6th. Oh, God. Anyway, we're here. Look, we're in Ramallah in the West Bank, and this woman's about to be told she has to condemn things.
First of all, do you condemn this terror attack by Hamas?
Well, I'm not sure why we should be spending time instead of putting context, asking me.
So this is Noor Odeh, who's, I hope I pronounced that name right, who's a former spokesperson for the Palestinian Authority, but that doesn't necessarily mean she's Hamas, is it? And she's being told she has to condemn, really.
About my opinion. I'm here as an analyst, and I don't represent anybody, Mark. I don't think this is the relevant question. We seem to be obsessed with asking the same questions.
This woman is amazing. I love her already. She's spot on straight away, saying we seem to be asking the same question. Are you on our side? Are you on their side? Is this binary? Yes, it is. We've created it to be binary. So understand, you're in the realm of binary. If you come in here and you do not denounce the other side, you're not on our side. What's your side? Are you with Israel? Oh, no, I'm an impartial reporter. So why are you making one denounce, not the other denounce? Because impartiality means you're treating everybody the same. You're not involved in how... Oh, yes, but we have to be involved in one side because we're on that side. We're on that side. There's no impartiality. It's all bias, and this Sky journalist is not going to want to get past this point now.
Talking about the same things, with demanding some sort of line to be drawn between good guys and bad guys, and you should know better. You should know that the story is far more complex and nuanced than that.
Beautiful.
Well,
he's left scratching his head. We're gonna have to watch all of this. This lady is batting it out of the park. I saw literally the first 20 seconds of this, and I was like, they're doing the same old thing. He's literally doesn't know what to do as a response. He is scratching his head. He is, and let's watch him scratch his head on that again.
It's a nuance than that.
Well,
well, what am I? Fine mess you got us into this time. That's what it feels like.
To have a human reaction to these things,
of course,
and I just wondered what yours was.
So the human reaction, what he sees as the human reaction, was whether you're on Israel and the mainstream media side, and whether you denounce whatever the other side is, regardless of the context or nuance. So this is what they're doing. Now that's 47 seconds in. Let's watch it all of the way through from start to finish. This beautiful lady.
First of all,
I love
do
her
you
already.
condemn this terror attack by Hamas?
Condemn. You must condemn.
Well, I'm not sure why we should be spending time
I don't need to
instead of
condemn.
putting context, asking me about my opinion. I'm here as an analyst and I don't represent anybody, Mark.
Good answer.
I don't think this is the relevant question. We seem to be obsessed with asking the same questions, with talking about the same things, with demanding some sort of line to be drawn between good guys and bad guys. And you should know better. You should know that the story is far more complex and nuanced than that.
Yes, complex and nuanced. Scratching the head.
It is possible to have a human reaction.
A human reaction. A human reaction should be binary. Choose a side. That's what he's saying. I mean, undercurrent, whether he can see his own psychology manifest and how what it's showing people. It's showing people there is only a binary understanding of how these things work, and I don't understand anything else. And you're telling me something else, and it makes me scratch my head, and it makes me wonder if you're human, because we dehumanize the other side.
And I just wondered what yours was.
Viewers time to give them context rather than.
So the human thing here would be to denounce, probably in his opinion also to get vengeful. So the human thing is a reaction by Israel. The human thing is to attack and the other side with whatever force, a major siege, and ignore the consequences.
In my opinion, which naturally would be that I can't tolerate to see any civilian put in a situation of danger.
This is amazing. So this is a minute into the interview, and they haven't got over the fact, or he hasn't got over the fact, that she won't outright denounce the attacks, because denouncing it, understand, it makes people at home believe, oh, she's on that side. You've made her denounce it. Oh, she must be on the side if she then denounces it. Oh yeah, I denounced the attack. I'm on the same side. Binary. It creates these two sides that are emblematic of what these people want you to believe. And this woman does not fit in that box. She is glorious. She is glorious.
And unfortunately, this is commonplace in a country that has been under occupation and brutal oppression for over half a century. It doesn't always make the news on your screen, but it's an everyday reality for Palestinians.
Been a reality for almost the same time the CIA's been in existence.
But the reason I'm asking,
it does. No, the pro-Israeli side of it makes news on your screen, and it's these people who bring you that news. So it's manufactured very carefully.
Is that you are an analyst and you know about these things, and I just wondered what you.
A minute 30, he's still going.
Was achieved by, murdering women and children, by massacring people at a...
So now he's asking her, like he's interrogating her, like she's done it. What do you think is achieved by massacring women? Because if you haven't denounced, then that must mean you're with. So that must mean that I can kind of paint you like that's something that you do. So why do you think that you would agree with that when she hasn't agreed with it? She's actually clearly stated that harming civilians is no good. She hates it. It's abhorrent. She's had to say it. He's ignored it. Let's hear how he just tries to spin it.
By massacring people at a music, murdering women and children, by massacring people at a music festival and taking hostages. I wonder, what is Hamas seeking to achieve by that?
Well, let me start from the beginning, which is that for months, and even here on Sky News, experts and observers like me have warned the situation is reaching a breaking point.
There you go. The person who has gotten a narrative to fit in, the guy who's presenting this program, he wants to create this narrative. He spent the first 2 minutes trying his best to paint her on one side so that people can understand things in a very basic binary lens that is false, has falsehood all over it, but looks kind of real. He's done all of that. But at the end of the day, they've not listened because they don't listen. They've got an agenda to put up. They don't hear what analysts actually say. They bring them on to make them look like they're getting balanced opinion, but then they treat them in an unbalanced manner. So the imbalance comes when they will present, they won't question Israeli side as hard. They'll be very lenient on them. They'll be very kind to them. And at the other side, it's all basically bundled up with Hamas. This is past the o'clock.
Israel is killing a record number of Palestinian civilians. It is imprisoning a record number of Palestinians.
Yeah.
Demolishing a record number of Palestinian homes. There is absolutely no horizon. You have a right-wing government that has stated its goal as decimating hope for Palestinian state.
Now, what she's saying here is being ignored. So the context and nuance, when all you can see is devastating attacks, it's been a devastating attack on the whole region psychologically. Hey, not only Palestinians, but Jews too. They're all suffering. The Israeli Jews are suffering as much as Palestinian or Israeli Jews, Israeli Palestinians, Israeli Muslims. I'm not sure. Israeli Arabs. There you go. I got there in the end. They're all suffering. All of these people are suffering badly. They're all having a bad time. They're not enjoying it. And they're not enjoying it because some people are making it worse for everybody with policy and with the way they act. And it's been going on for so long, decades and decades and decades, that now we're at the state where things boil over all the time. And they warn people that they boil over, but they're too busy trying to get them to denounce them for the trendy thing that's in the news right then, rather than listening.
So that end reality brought us to where we are now, where diplomatic efforts are labeled as diplomatic terrorism, where academics who speak out are labeled as anti-Semitic, where any mobilization in civil spaces for justice, for Palestinian rights is also labeled and maligned. There were no avenues. And it was an opportunity for groups like Hamas and others who see no other option but armed action to...
She is completely right. If you've got given no other option, then you know what's going to happen. So Israeli intelligence know what's going to happen. They've been watching and listening to this happening. It's not happened because it's been Israel is been trying really hard to stop something like this happening. It's happening because it suits a narrative right now. Suits a narrative to let them try. But there's only one side in control.
To take center stage. That failure to create a horizon is exactly what brought us all to this very tragic point where everybody is suffering.
Everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And clearly, Palestinians have legitimate grievances. My point is really, what does a terror attack like this do to help the Palestinians?
So the Palestinians have legitimate grievances that we help the state of Israel ignore. Yeah, we help the government of Israel ignore. And my point is, what about the Palestinian terrorists, not the Palestinian people, just these terrorists that we, do all of these bad things? What about them? Not about why do the terrorists exist and what creates them? Because you get rid of the injustice there between Israel and Palestine, the occupation, all of that sort of stuff, and you get less and less terrorist activity. It is an occupation happening. Terrorism is armed uprising, often in occupied territory, and that is obviously what's happening here.
Well, again, it is not about that one attack. It's about a dead-end situation that, where with no options for a breakthrough, with no options for an end to the occupation, with no options for an end to the siege of 2 million Palestinians in Gaza, whose majority are under 35 years of age. A 20-year-old in Gaza has already survived 5 wars.
That's unbelievable, isn't it? You imagine that. That's 5 wars, not knowing any different. You are under assault for all of your life. What do you think you're going to do when you grow up with no options, 0 options at all, and you're stuck in an occupied state? What do you think you're going to do? They create this carefully. They know what they're creating. And then when it happens, they say, look how terrible these people are. You treat people like the worst scum around, and they will eventually bite back. That's the way it works.
So one of them at least lasted for 51 days. In every one of them, hundreds of children were killed.
Hundreds.
Entire families were wiped out.
Children killed, ignored. No asking Israel to denounce the actions of the Israeli Defense Forces. No asking Israeli politicians to denounce the acts of Mossad or the Israeli Defense Force. None of that. We hold the same rules to Israel as we do to Palestine. We don't hold the same rules to Israelis as we do to Palestinians. It's very clearly obvious. It's very obvious. And that means one is in control and one isn't. And it's pretty obvious the propaganda machine is really on display in this war. And I say war with quotation marks because this has been allowed. There's no way intelligence services did not know this was going on. 0 way. That will all come out. It will all come out. There is 0 way. For people who study the Mossad, IDF, Unit 8200, all of the realm, there is no way these guys weren't all over this. This is how it works. And now it's a very precarious moment where this is them trying to push. They're trying to create their own 9/11, and they're doing it. They're being allowed to do it because the only people to go up to defend Palestinians are Palestinians who can be asked, why aren't you condemning everything that Hamas is doing when they're saying you're killing our children, and you hear nothing. It's a blank expression. You're killing our children is responses. Oh yeah, we know. It can't, honestly, that only ends in the side that thinks they're winning, losing. This all ends in Israel losing in a way that's even worse than you could possibly imagine. It's just pushing it down the road. You treat people in negative ways, it builds up, and eventually it comes around on you. And it's coming. They keep pushing and they keep pushing. At some point, things are going to change in the world and things will change. So lots of people know that this is Israel pushing to get as much power as they can before that time comes, but also to destroy what remains of Palestine. It's pretty obvious. And it's Israel. It's not Jews. It's Israel. It's the state of Israel. And loads of people in the state of Israel don't agree with what the higher echelons of power are doing because some of it is just evil and they know it. And a load of it is under the extremist branch of Jewish ideology, a political ideology. And so they know it. But they still got to walk the path, haven't they?
Just as they are being right now in Gaza. So the answer really has to do with changing the mantra and changing the way we deal with this. This is not about good guys versus bad guys. It's not about whether you allow Israel, which is accused of documented war crimes, to commit even more war crimes in order to maintain its stranglehold and control over the Palestinians. It's about ending this once and for all.
Wow, this lady is just knocking them out of the park. But I tell you what, it's easy to knock out balls that are lined up beautifully and thrown gently at you. Because at the end of the day, that is the defense of the Palestinian people. It's a righteous cause. It is one of the most righteous causes because, of course, they are a depleted minority who are targeted and beaten and abused all throughout history publicly, and we all know it. So this is what this lady's doing. Is fairly easy. She's defending the meek, and the meek will inherit the earth, apparently.
About giving Palestinians their right to be free from this cycle, free from being beholden to a dynamic of violence and brutality, both ways.
I just think that she is one of the best people I've heard on the news in a while. And this tragic event is really contrived. It comes from something that's complex and nuanced, just as she said. Those are the two words that describe Israel-Palestine. Complex, nuanced, not all one side and the other. The lines between good and bad are completely blurred, just like in every part of life now. It's all coming to the extremes, isn't it? It's all you're on one side or the other, and it's all made to look like that. But you know what it is? We all know what it is. It's all pasty, my friend. It's all pasty. So I'm not sure there's any place where this argument I'm talking about, this contrived argument about condemning Hamas off point and it then being used as a tool for smearing people. There's no better way to show this as a basic example in the UK than by showing you this piece of trash. I've just seen the title, and it fits very well to what I was explaining, because of course it would, because that's the way of things.
Very real human images of civilians, elderly women, disabled people, children. It is just absolutely astonishing.
This is Times Radio, and this is a lady who's talking about the images of Israelis being butchered or kidnapped by the Hamas fighters. But I want to see her speaking about the same thing with how all of the children that got killed by Israeli Defense Forces, all of the women who were being kidnapped and children who have been kidnapped out of their home by Israeli Defense Forces, the harrowing images we've seen for all of our lifetime that has come out of Palestine. I want to hear not just one side, not it being used a tool to create. There's us and there's them. There's the good people and there's evil, and we're on the side of the good people, because it's clear Times Radio are not on the side of good people. Sky News not on the side of the good people. Remember who they are. They're Murdoch.
Very, very vivid images.
It's in all of the papers today. The front page of the Sunday Times, though, really demonstrating just the human toll of what's happening here. The headline: hostages dragged from homes in Israel as families flee slaughter. I mean, we know
that's exactly what the Palestinians have been living under for years and years and years and years. And it's amazing that the same thing is happening on the other side, and it's like equivalent to 9/11. It says something about how these people see Palestinians and other people who are occupied in different areas as just basically rats. They see them as the same. It was the same for the Jews once upon a time in certain parts of Europe, where there were ghettos springing up, and the people around saw them as rats. They didn't get given opportunities, and eventually they got massacred, didn't they? So what is going on here? The same thing is happening. Yes, there's irony attached to who is on which side and all of this sort of stuff. It's rich. It's rich with irony, nuance, complexity. It's rich with all sorts of tragedy of the highest order. Yet this is all going to be pushed to be pro-Israel by the end of this.
Things are moving fast at the moment. But some of this coverage is incredibly shocking. I think for most people, seeing Israeli citizens, you know, grandmas, mothers, children taken hostage effectively, some paraded through the streets in the most despicable manner, will...
This could be literally, they're saying it's like, oh my God, look at these images. You can't even believe that this is happening. And I can promise you, you go online and you can find thousands and thousands of images and videos of Palestinians over the past all of the occupation, being arrested, being kidnapped from their home, being taken under false laws, just being randomly shoved into vans, being accused of things, being jailed, being taken hostage. No, not the same rights. Not the same sort of ability to defend themselves. Not the same status. Given limited chances in life. Like, all of these things have got to be viewed in the fact that if you treat people a certain way, when the time comes that you get treated in a certain way, then everybody's going to use whataboutism, aren't they? They're going to say, but what about what you do all of the time? Yet these guys are so blind to how they're spinning it. It's really sick because so many kids have died on both sides.
Be the most shocking thing from the coverage this morning?
Yeah, it's absolutely brutal.
Most shocking?
As you say, Kate, it is the very, very real human images of civilians, elderly women, disabled people.
Yeah,
children.
Keep saying them. Keep saying disabled people, elderly people, children. That has been going on, very real images for all of my life coming out of Israel. That has been going on with Palestinian people being targeted for so long. And they look desperate. They look desperate years ago. They're even more desperate now. That's not a surprise. That's policy, partially policy with support with parties as well, isn't it? With political parties. So go on. You're a minute into this and you've just said how terrible it is to see women and children being kidnapped. We agree. It's terrible to see that. Always terrible to see that. Whoever's doing the kidnapping and whoever's doing the abusing, whoever's doing the rest of it. But where are you taking us? Why are you having this conversation?
It's just absolutely astonishing. Very, very vivid images on the Sunday Times.
Go on, vivid images.
Really, hit home to people how awful this attack is. I think it's very interesting this morning.
Publicising the newspapers.
West Streeting. I thought it was very interesting how
West
hardline
Streeting
he has been about this. Obviously, the Labour Party has had its problems in terms of its attitude towards Israel in the past, and I thought he was
spin.
Keir Starmer have both come out very, very strongly this morning.
West Streeting is obviously pro-Israel lobby, causing sort of rifts in the Labour Party. Very clearly that. Keir Starmer also, I mean, come on, he's a tool, isn't he?
Which I think is it's a line in the sand. Obviously,
coming out.
Corbyn has been he's
Go
failed
on.
to condemn Hamas this morning.
He's failed to condemn Hamas this morning. Again, this is Jeremy Corbyn's failure to condemn Hamas divides Labour. Does it? Because, I mean, it's the failure to do the first thing that the other side wants you to do so they can smear you. So you're playing the smear game with the other side. They want to smear you with supporting Hamas. So the first thing is they ask you a question where the answer isn't simple yes or no. It's really nuanced. And you have to say Hamas is a legitimate part of this entire dynamic because the dynamic has been made terroristic. It's been made violent and aggressive from the off. This dynamic that exists over there has been going on for certainly a long time, possibly my entire lifetime. Definitely my entire lifetime. This watching Palestinians be murdered and the different stages Hamas have gone through to be terrorists, freedom fighters, now really just painted as terrorists by an extremely Israeli leaning mainstream media, Western mainstream media, that will do anything to protect the supposed status quo that does not exist. So everybody's denying reality. And Jeremy Corbyn, are you going to deny Hamas, yes or no? Are you going to condemn Hamas, yes or no? And he says, I'm not going to answer that question, or I'm not going to say anything because my answer would be really long and complex. Well, that allows them to put people into a binary, into their binary algorithm. It's put in all nuanced information, spit out binary yes or no, black or white, good or bad, rich or poor answers to everything.
He will be speaking on the fringes this afternoon, and I think that will be a
point of
concern for Keir Starmer.
The fact that Jeremy Corbyn is speaking on the fringes of the Labour Party will be a concern to Keir Starmer, because, of course, Keir Starmer wants all of the information to be the same, doesn't it? One wall where they obviously ignore Palestinian rights to fight occupation and occupying force. I mean, there's going to be people in Palestine. The more you push, the more you will see that happen. It's not fostering. The state of Israel has not fostered any type of good relationship with the Palestinian people within my lifetime, and they don't look like they're going to start now. And in fact, we've watched it disappear until basically there's nothing left. And when you've got a population within a population that's occupied, you're always going to see violence. If you then have to take the same side every time, or the mainstream media will continue to destroy you, then you can tell that there's some evil going on in this world, man. Evil.
I was remembering when we were here when Jeremy Corbyn was the leader of the party. I mean, you couldn't move for Palestinian flags, could you?
Yes, yeah, and that is obviously...
Oh, yeah, you couldn't move for Palestinian flags. No, you couldn't move for Israeli flags for people who were having big protests about how much of an anti-Semite Jeremy Corbyn was, because he once liked a picture of graffiti art on Facebook once upon a time. That was really, I mean, that was there was a lot of Edelman, the smell of Edelman PR about the whole campaign on the law to try and oust Jeremy Corbyn, and all the different PR campaigns that these people all got involved in. They say, oh, couldn't move for Palestinian flags. Bullshit, you couldn't move for Israeli flags, and people protesting against Corbyn. I mean, it's both sides. You cannot deny one side exists, and they're all using the death of babies and kidnapping and all of this terrible stuff that they're talking about. They're all using this for their little bit of bickering about Jeremy Corbyn and trying to paint him and smear him. They're using it. They're using the death of children. She is currently doing this. She's currently using the death of children to try and gain political points. This is the type of people they are. They're using the death of children. They're doing it. They're doing it right here, right here. It took them a minute and a half to get really deep into it. We're going to hear, oh, the death of children, death of children, death of children. Jeremy Corbyn, fringes, worrying.
Very, very keen to avoid a big fight in the party about this issue. It will be a bit
about the issue. Because
yeah, I think you saw
because Keir Starmer doesn't want to speak and have to. He doesn't want to have to talk about any of that nuance. It's none of it's about Jeremy Corbyn. None of it's about this. This is a really good tool to take the light away from the Labour leadership not condemning years of Israeli occupation. A Labour leadership not fighting for the underclass. That's what and it is. Palestinians are an underclass. They're not even. They are. It is a definite. They're not treated as human. Okay, they're not given human rights in the same way, and that's unacceptable. Should be unacceptable across the board. It's not unacceptable to Labour Party and Keir Starmer. That's why they're concentrating on Jeremy Corbyn right here. And I don't even really I mean, Jeremy Corbyn thing was like the last hurrah for me into mainstream politics. It was never going to achieve anything anyway. Years would pass by. Jeremy Corbyn thing's dead. They're concentrating on it now, so they don't have to see the Labour leadership comment on the nuance and complexity of a very nuanced and complex situation, as the lady was saying before.
Now they've approached it from the leadership this morning. They've been very, very hard line.
And Aletha has joined us now. Lovely to have you with us.
When she says hard line, she means Zionist. They've been very Zionist. They've been very pro-Zion. That's what this is what they're saying. Hard line means they've been with the Israeli, not only the Israeli people, But the Israeli establishment, which is run by this ideology, who's there by the ideology, like the majority of Israelis aren't Zionists. This is what people just don't understand. They don't understand how the top echelons are all got a different way of viewing the world than most of the people underneath. And that's repeated in every society. That's not a surprise, is it? That those in the top echelons of any hierarchical structure don't understand what the bottom parts of that hierarchical structure look like. That is a very normal thing to happen.
We're talking about the coverage of Israel on the front pages of what's happening. I mean, where does this go now from here? Because, you know, so the front page of the Mail on Sunday,
go on, where does it go now from here?
Most papers, but, you know, the fact that there are people who've been kidnapped by terrorists, I mean, including 25-year-old now.
They say terrorists, they're using the terrorist line. I just don't, you know, it's like they're in charge of Palestine here and there. It's not as easy as that. It's a very complex and nuanced situation. They call people terrorists and they're using the state of Israel's lines because it's Hamas, really, isn't it?
This is the front page of the Mail on Sunday. What happens next, do you think? What's the reaction from the international community?
To ignore Palestinian rights.
Of the timing of these attacks.
What the hell type of political correspondent for The Guardian? And she's talking about these brutal attacks. She seems to have a big smile. Has she got Smiler's disease or something? She seems to have a big smile on her face. She doesn't seem to emotionally be connected with this subject at all. I'm not sure that as a political correspondent, that's exactly this. She looks very positive about the whole thing.
I'm not sure if we covered this already, but obviously we're around the time of the 40th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. I think it's quite dangerous for us to start speculating on how
50th anniversary.
50th, yes. Thank you very much.
Oh my God! Oh, there you go, and we end with smug face over here. That was the end of the clip there of Jeremy Corbyn's failure to condemn Hamas divides Labour and makes everybody really happy. Everybody's happy. You're getting details about things wrong because none of you actually know what you're talking about, do you? This woman doesn't know what she's talking about. These people are all using double speak. This is just a really unfortunate time for Palestinians and for normal, everyday Israeli civilians. Both of them are caught up in the middle of a load of weird political ideologies and a lot of violence and a lot of segregation and a lot of kidnapping and a lot of jailing people without giving them proper trials, and a lot of dehumanizing on all sides. You know, I'm pretty positive you go into Palestine and you find the extreme Palestinians and they'll say that Israelis don't have souls. And you go and find the same in Israel, they'll say Palestinians don't have souls. You know, this is the way it goes. Extremes of both sides are exactly as extreme as each other. This is a part of the dynamics of being human. If we want to talk about dynamics, humans, some of them are nice and some of them aren't very nice. Not all of them can be painted under the same brush because of who they are and where they come from. I think we've learned that in life, haven't we? Anyway, who cares? It's all pasty anyway.